Some bloodlines are born, others are constructed in the shadows of cruelty. The night was thick, heavy, so humid it felt like the air itself was sweating. And through that darkness walked Madame Elora Vance. Her silver lantern swung at her side. Its glow cut through the black like a blade. Every step echoed the kind of confidence only a woman without fear could carry. Behind her, back at the mansion, her 5 daughters watched from the windows. 5 silhouettes, 5 sets of eyes, 5 young women who did not yet understand the future their mother was crafting for them. But Elora understood. Oh, she understood perfectly. The Vance bloodline was weak, she said. Her daughters were delicate. The family name was losing its edge. She blamed her dead husband for all of it. A man she claimed left her riches, but no strength. Land, but no legacy. Daughters, but no future. Tonight, she intended to fix that. She reached the slave quarters, pushed the door open, and silence swallowed the room whole. Men froze where they stood. Some lowered their heads, some clenched their fists, others prayed quietly because they already sensed this was no routine visit. Then she saw him, Thomas, the tallest man on the plantation, broad shoulders, a quiet force, a man who carried his suffering like a chain he learned to live with. Her lantern light crawled up his frame, from his bare feet to his scarred hands, to his eyes that held too many stories. Elora didn't blink, didn't hesitate. She smiled that cold smile, the one that made even grown men tremble. "You," she whispered, her voice soft but sharp enough to cut bone. Thomas didn't speak, didn't step back, but inside something cracked, a silent dread spreading through his chest, because when Madame Vance chose someone, they were no longer theirs. Their body, their life, their future, all of it became hers. She stepped closer, the lavender on her dress wrapped around him like a trap. "Come with me," she said, "for the sake of my daughters." And that was it, the moment everything changed, for Thomas, for the daughters, for the Vance bloodline that would soon be tainted by a plan far darker than anyone dared to imagine. For next, make sure you share, comment, and subscribe to keep this story going. Some choices rewrite destinies, others destroy them. The walk to the mansion felt endless. Thomas followed behind Madame Elora like a shadow being dragged by moonlight. His chains didn't clatter, he wasn't wearing any, but the weight on his soul was heavier than iron. The big house loomed ahead, white walls glowing in the lantern light, columns rising like pillars of judgment. A place built off the sweat of men like him, yet forbidden to them. Tonight, that rule was being erased, forced open, bent to Elora Vance's will. When they reached the porch, Thomas hesitated. Just one step, just one heartbeat. But she noticed. Elora Vance didn't allow hesitation. She snapped her fingers, a small motion, but sharp enough to remind him exactly where he stood in her world. He stepped inside. The house smelled of polished wood, fresh lilies, and the faint sweetness of a world that was never meant for him. Up the staircase, 5 faces appeared, her daughters, silent, watching. The eldest, Marianne, stood in front, a stern jaw, eyes that tried to be strong but couldn't hide the fear trembling behind them. Behind her stood Lydia, Clara, Eloise, and the youngest, soft-faced Rose, who clutched the railing like it was the only thing keeping her upright. They looked at Thomas the way someone looks at fate. Unwanted, unexpected, unavoidable. Elora lifted her chin. "Daughters," she announced. "This is the man who will reshape our bloodline." The words struck the hallway like thunder. Marianne swallowed hard. Clara gasped. Rose whispered something no one heard. Thomas felt his stomach twist, not with fear for himself, but for them. Elora continued, "He is strong where your father was weak. He is tall where our line has fallen short, and he will give this family what it deserves." Her daughters exchanged terrified glances. They were raised to obey, not to question, and certainly not to defy their mother. Elora turned to Thomas, cold, calculated. "Tonight begins the new era of the Vance name," she said. And with that she placed a hand on his arm. Possessive. Final. The house felt smaller, darker, like it was holding its breath for the horrors that were about to unfold. If you want next, share, comment, and subscribe to keep the story alive. Some nights are quiet, until screams rewrite the rules. Thomas stood frozen. The 5 daughters stared at him, all silent, all trembling, all aware of what was coming, even if they didn't understand it yet. Elora circled him like a hawk, her skirt swished against the polished floor. The silver lantern swung in her hand, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. "You will do this," she said softly. "No mistakes." Thomas didn't answer. Words were useless. Fear was useless. All that mattered was surviving the first command. The eldest daughter, Marianne, stepped forward, her jaw tight, eyes flashing. "Mother, this is madness," she whispered. Elora stopped, turned her gaze on Marianne. Cold, deadly. "Madness?" she repeated. "Madness is allowing weakness to inherit our name. Weakness will die with me. Strength will live." Thomas could see the fear in the girls' eyes, the way they shifted their weight, the way their hands clenched the edges of their skirts, the way they tried not to breathe too loudly. Elora smiled again, the kind of smile that made you shiver. "Do not look at him like that," she warned. "You will obey, or your line end tonight." She gestured to Thomas. "Show them." Thomas swallowed. The words didn't leave his mouth. The act itself was enough. A silence fell, thick and suffocating. It was the kind of silence that even the wind held its breath. The daughters watched every move, every shift, every glance. And in that moment, a terrible understanding spread. This wasn't just about Thomas, this was about them, their bodies, their blood, their very existence being manipulated for a future they could not refuse. Elora's eyes gleamed. She had waited for this night, planned it for years. Every heartbeat in this room was part of her design. Thomas's shoulders tensed. The mansion seemed alive around him. The floorboards creaked, the walls whispered, even the chandelier swayed as if the house knew what was coming next. Marianne's hand shook, Lydia's lips quivered. Clara's eyes widened in horror. Elora leaned closer to Thomas and whispered, "This is only the beginning." And just like that, a shadow fell over the Vance daughter's future. A shadow that would grow darker with every passing night. For next, share, comment, and subscribe to follow this dark story to its next chilling twist. When control becomes obsession, darkness finds a way in. The night air pressed against the mansion like a suffocating blanket. Every corner of the big house seemed alive, watching, judging, waiting. Elora led Thomas to the main hall. Her daughters followed silently behind. Each step measured, each breath held like a secret waiting to explode. She stopped in the center of the hall. The lantern light flickered across her sharp features. Her eyes glinted, a predator satisfied with her prey. "This is where it begins," she said, her voice soft but deadly. "No mistakes, no hesitation." Marianne's hands trembled. She whispered to her sister Lydia, "Mother, what are you doing?" Elora's head snapped toward them. Her glare froze them in place. "Do not speak unless I allow it," she hissed. "Every word, every action shapes our future." Thomas felt the weight of her words press down on him, not just from fear, but from the realization that he was now a tool, an instrument in a plan that had been crafted long before he arrived. Elora circled him slowly. Her daughters watched, paralyzed. She reached out, lightly touching Thomas's shoulder, a gesture that seemed gentle, but carried the weight of inevitability. "They will give them what their father could not," she said, her eyes locked onto his. "Strength, height, blood that carries our legacy forward. Do you understand?" Thomas nodded silently. There was no choice. Not for him. Not for the daughters. Marianne's lips parted. She tried again. "Mother, they are people, not tools." Elora's hand shot out, a sharp slap across Marianne's cheek. The sound cracked through the hall. Marianne's head jerked back. Tears pooled in her eyes, but she did not speak again. Elora turned to the other daughters. Clara, Eloise, Rose, all stiffened. The message was clear: obey or suffer. Thomas's heart pounded. The fear in the room was thick enough to taste. He realized there was no escaping this. No mercy would come from her, no pleading would matter. Elora took a step back, studied them all, a cruel satisfaction glinting in her eyes. "Tonight we start the new bloodline, and by dawn nothing will ever be the same." The mansion seemed to shiver under her words. The walls closed in, shadows twisted across the floor. The night itself seemed to recoil in fear. And in the silence that followed, every heartbeat knew the horrors were only beginning. Some secrets are too dark to stay hidden, and tonight the Vance mansion would prove it. The hall was silent. Too silent. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a scream. Elora stood at the center, her daughters arrayed behind her, Thomas in front, all waiting, all trapped in the gravity of her plan. She turned to the eldest, Marianne, her gaze sharp enough to draw blood. "You will watch. Every detail. Learn. Obey." Marianne swallowed hard, her throat dry. She nodded, though her mind screamed in rebellion. Elora's hand rested briefly on Thomas's shoulder, a touch that burned more than it comforted. "You are strong," she whispered, "stronger than any man they have known. You will carry the legacy they were never given." Thomas kept his head bowed. The words didn't belong to him. They belonged to a woman who had built an empire on obedience. and fear. The daughters shifted uneasily. Livia's fingers curled into the folds of her skirt. Clara's eyes darted to the window as if escape were possible. Eloise exhaled sharply, trying to calm her racing heart. Rose, the youngest, stared wide-eyed, uncomprehending. Elora smiled, cold, predatory. This is not cruelty. This is survival. This is strength. This is what will make our bloodline unbreakable. Thomas felt a chill crawl up his spine. He had survived the plantation for years, but nothing had prepared him for this, for the knowledge that he was now a part of something far larger and far darker. Marianne stepped forward, trembling. "Mother, please, this isn't right." Elora's eyes narrowed. A vein pulsed at her temple. Right and wrong are luxuries of the weak. They do not dictate the future. Strength dictates the future. And tonight, you will witness it. She motioned to Thomas. The air thickened with tension. The daughters flinched. He knew there was no choice. A candle flickered. The shadows on the wall danced like specters. The house seemed alive, watching, waiting. Elora leaned in close to Thomas. Her whisper cut through the silence. "Begin." And in that instant, the mansion exhaled a quiet scream. The daughter's innocence shattered. Thomas's life changed forever. The Vance bloodline took its first dark step toward a future no one would survive unscathed. To see the nightmare unfold in next, share, comment, and subscribe, and don't miss a single moment of this chilling story. When darkness chooses its path, even the innocent can't escape. The room felt smaller now, walls pressing in, shadows twisting unnaturally across the polished floor. Every heartbeat echoed like a drum of doom. Elora watched Thomas closely, her eyes sharp, hungry. A predator studying its prey. The daughters remained behind her, frozen statues of fear. Marianne's hand shook. Lydia's lips quivered. Clara averted her gaze. Eloise bit her thumb. Rose, the youngest, whispered a silent prayer. "Tonight," Elora said, "we forge a future stronger than any legacy before." Thomas's chest tightened. He knew the words weren't for him. They were for her daughters. A twisted lesson in obedience, a cruel instruction in survival. Elora circled him slowly, a silver lantern swinging in rhythm with her steps. "You are tall. You are strong. Your strength will serve this family, whether you like it or not." Thomas swallowed. A heavy weight settled in his stomach. Not fear for himself, but for the girls, for the lives being mapped out before them like a dark blueprint. Marianne stepped forward. "Mother, please," she pleaded. Her voice broke. The sound was raw, human. Elora's hand shot out, a sharp slap across her cheek. The sound cut through the hall like glass breaking. "Obedience," Elora said coldly, "is survival. You will learn it, or be destroyed." The daughters flinched. Thomas's jaw tightened. The room held its breath. Elora turned back to him. A slow, deliberate smile curved her lips. "This is only the beginning," she whispered. "By dawn, everything will be changed." A distant wind rattled the windows. A dog barked somewhere far off, sharp and nervous. The house itself seemed alive, knowing what horrors were about to unfold. Thomas clenched his fists. He had survived years of cruelty, but this was a design not of chance, but of obsession. Elora motioned toward the daughters. "Watch closely, learn, understand." Strength is all that matters. Bloodline, height, power, all of it. The daughters' eyes were wide, silent screams behind them. The mansion walls seemed to whisper, warning, mourning, waiting. And in that silence, Thomas realized one truth. There would be no mercy tonight, no escape, no innocence left untainted. For next, share, comment, and subscribe. Witness the Vance bloodline descend even deeper into darkness. Some nights mark the end of innocence and the beginning of horror. The candle flames flickered, casting twisted shadows across the hall. Every shadow seemed alive. Every whisper of wind sounded like a warning. Elora stood tall, regal, untouchable. Her daughters huddled behind her, wide-eyed and trembling. Thomas remained still, silent, a giant caught in the web of her plan. "You understand your role," she said to Thomas, voice low and dangerous. "Do you?" He nodded once, silent. No words could capture the weight of what lay ahead. Elora's gaze shifted to her daughters. They will watch. They will learn. And they will survive only if they accept this. Marianne swallowed hard. Her throat felt raw. "Mother, this is too cruel," she whispered. Elora turned sharply. A hand struck Marianne's cheek again. The sound echoed through the hall like a gunshot. "No," she hissed. "Cruelty is irrelevant. Strength is all that matters." Thomas's stomach churned. He had endured hardship all his life, but nothing could prepare him for the realization that this family, this legacy, was built on control, obsession, and fear. The youngest rose, trembled silently. Clara and Eloise exchanged a glance of horror. Even Lydia, who had tried to appear strong, had tears glistening in her eyes. Elora stepped closer to Thomas. Her fingers grazed his arm, not gently, possessively. This is the first step, the night when the Vance daughters learn what power is, what blood is, what it takes to survive. Thomas forced himself to remain calm. Every instinct screamed to run. Every memory of the plantation warned him. But there was nowhere to go, no choice left to make. The air felt heavier, thick, with anticipation, with fear, with the undeniable truth that nothing would ever be the same. Elora's daughters watched, silent witnesses to the beginning of their transformation. Their innocence was slipping through their fingers like sand. The mansion held its breath, waiting for the first crack, the first cry, the first act that would mark the new bloodline. Thomas's eyes met Elora's. He saw the darkness gleaming there, the obsession, the hunger, the unshakable certainty that she would succeed no matter the cost. And in that hall, under flickering candlelight, a silent promise was made that by morning everything would be changed. Some nights are remembered because they leave nothing behind but fear. The mansion was quiet, too quiet. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a warning. Every shadow seemed to watch. Elora stood at the center of the hall. Her daughters lined the walls, faces pale, eyes wide with terror. Thomas remained where he was, a man caught between obedience and the unimaginable. "This is where it starts," Elora said, her voice soft but heavy with command. "You will watch, you will learn, and you will obey." Marianne swallowed, her hands trembled. "Mother, please," she whispered. Elora's glare froze her in place. "Obedience is survival," she said. "Nothing else matters." The youngest, Rose, clutched her skirt, her small fingers white with tension. Clara and Eloise exchanged fearful glances. Lydia's lips quivered, trying not to cry. Thomas felt the weight of their fear. He knew it wasn't just for him. It was for the daughters, for their bodies, their blood, their lives, all being mapped out before them. Elora circled him slowly, lantern in hand, its flickering light casting dancing shadows. "You are tall, you are strong, and you will give this family what it deserves." Thomas remained silent. He could feel the tension building in the room, a storm about to break. Marianne tried again. "Mother, they are humans, not tools." Elora's hand shot out, a sharp slap across Marianne's face. The sound echoed, pain burned, tears formed, but no sound escaped her lips. "This is not cruelty," Elora said coldly. "This is strength. This is survival. This is legacy." The daughters flinched at every word. Thomas's heart pounded in his chest. The house seemed alive, walls whispering, floors groaning, ceiling shaking. Elora turned toward Thomas. "You will begin," she said, her tone final. No room for refusal. The night closed in around them. Every shadow seemed to thicken. Every heartbeat echoed the inevitability of what was coming. The daughters' innocence slipped away, piece by piece, their eyes wide with horror, their hearts pounding with fear. Thomas looked at Elora. The obsession in her eyes was clear, the plan unstoppable. And in that moment, he realized there would be no mercy tonight, no escape, no return to what was once safe. The mansion held its breath, the bloodline waited, and the night had only just begun. For next, share, comment, and subscribe. The darkness deepens, and nothing will ever be the same. Some nights leave scars that time can never heal. The hall was silent. The candlelight flickered, throwing shadows that twisted like restless spirits. Elora's eyes burned as she studied Thomas. Her daughters remained behind her, frozen in fear. Marian's jaw clenched. Lydia's hands shook. Clara's eyes darted nervously. Eloise bit her lip. Rose whispered a silent prayer. "This is where the legacy begins," Elora said, her voice soft, but it carried the weight of command. "You will obey. You will endure. You will create strength." Thomas felt a chill in his spine. He had endured years of hardship on this plantation, but nothing had prepared him for this, for the way a family could twist their power into obsession, for the way one woman could bend fate like it was clay. Marianne stepped forward. "Mother, please," she whispered. Her voice trembled. Elora's gaze snapped to her. A swift, sharp hand struck Marianne's cheek. The sound cracked like thunder. The pain burned. The warning was clear. "Obedience is survival," Elora said coldly. "Everything else is irrelevant." The daughters flinched. Thomas's hands curled into fists. The tension was unbearable. The mansion seemed alive, watching, waiting, anticipating the horrors that were about to unfold. Elora turned toward Thomas. "You will begin," she said. "No hesitation, no doubt, no mercy." Thomas's heart pounded. He looked at the daughters, their innocence slipping away in fragments, their eyes wide with terror, their bodies trapped in a nightmare not of their making. Elora circled him. The lantern cast twisted shadows across the floor. You are tall. You are strong. You are part of the bloodline now. Do you understand? Thomas nodded silently. Words were useless. All that remained was the weight of inevitability. The mansion shivered under the weight of her obsession. The walls groaned. The shadows danced. The night itself seemed to hold its breath. And in that moment, Thomas knew one thing. There would be no mercy, no escape, no innocence left untainted. The Vance bloodline had begun its dark transformation, and by dawn, nothing would ever be the same. To witness the final chapter in Next, share, comment, and subscribe. The Vance bloodline's dark secret is about to be revealed. Some legacies are built on darkness, and this one will haunt every soul it touches. Dawn was a pale gray promise. The mansion stood silent, except for the quiet creak of floorboards and the soft breaths of those trapped inside. Elora Vance stood in the center of the hall. Her 5 daughters lined the walls, pale and trembling. Thomas remained in front of her, silent, tense, a man carrying the weight of a plan he had never asked for. "This is the moment," Elora whispered. "Everything changes today. Our bloodline will be strong, unbroken, immortal." Marianne, the eldest, swallowed hard. Her hands shook as she tried to steady herself. "Mother, must it be like this?" she asked, voice breaking. Elora's eyes glinted with obsession. Strength does not ask for permission. Strength demands obedience, and obedience is survival. Thomas exhaled slowly. He had endured cruelty before, but never like this. Never a fate so carefully engineered. Never a family so cold, so methodical. The daughters flinched as Elora moved closer to Thomas. Her fingers grazed his arm, not gentle, possessive. "You will begin the legacy tonight. Our bloodline will rise through you." Marianne tried to step forward, a protest, a plea. Elora's hand struck again, a warning, a lesson in fear. The mansion seemed to shiver. Shadows stretched across the walls like monstrous shapes. The night had surrendered to the weight of her obsession. Thomas's eyes met the daughters. They saw their terror, their innocence shattered in fragments. The realization hit him like a storm. There was no escape, no mercy, no turning back. Elora's voice cut through the air. "By the end of today, nothing will remain the same. Not your lives, not your souls, not this house. The Vance bloodline will endure, stronger than ever." The girls huddled together, silent, broken. Thomas's jaw tightened. The room seemed alive, breathing, waiting. And in that hall, under the pale dawn light, the new bloodline began, forged in fear, in obedience, in darkness. Every heartbeat in the mansion carried the weight of what had begun. Every breath whispered of the horrors yet to come. The Vance legacy was no longer just a name. It was a design, a shadow, a curse. And it would haunt everyone it touched forever.